means that both they that have wives be as though they had none. So that means just be willing to lose the things that you have. Whether it's money, whether it's relationships, friends, and even your own spouse. Okay? They that use this world is not abusing it, for the fashion of this world passes away. And that's what it says in Luke. Your wife and your husband is not going to be your wife or your husband when you are raised from the dead and we receive that new world. He that is unmarried cares for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married cares for the things that are of the world. So then marriage is of this world. It's not of the world to come. How he may please his wife. There's difference also between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman, the divorced woman, cares for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy, both in body and in spirit. But she that is married cares for the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you. But if any man think he behaves himself improperly toward his virgin, if she pass the flower of age, he sins not, let them marry. Nevertheless, he that stands steadfast in his heart, being single, he that stands steadfast in his heart, having no need, but has power of his own will, of his sexual desire, and has so decreed in his heart that he will keep his virgin, does well. So then, he that gives her in marriage does okay, but he that gives not in marriage does better. Okay? This is the verse that confuses people. Chapter 7, verse 39. He quotes the law of Moses. Okay? It says in the law of Moses that the wife is bound by the law as long as her husband lives. But if her husband be dead, she is free. She is at freedom to be married to whom she will, only in the Lord. Okay? Under the law of Moses, you could divorce and remarry. Okay? But as he says in Romans chapter 7, he explains what that quotation right there, the law of Moses in 7:39, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 39, at the very end, after he just went over and said, don't remarry as a Christian. Don't remarry as a Christian. It's a sin, as we're going to find out in other scriptures here. Under the law of Moses, you could do that. But in Christianity, it's sin. Christ changed all that. We're not justified by the works of the law of Moses, but by the faith of Christ. And he explains that scripture in Romans chapter 7. And he just quotes it here to show how he gets what he just quoted in the entire 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Okay? That the husband or the wife in the law of Moses is our spiritual husband or wife. We were in bondage to sin, as Romans chapter 7 explains. That sin was our husband. But when our new husband died on the cross and rose again, he crucified sin. And we have a new life. We have a new husband. Okay? So, since we have a new life, nothing that we have done in the past matters. We're dead. Our old man is dead. We have a new man. And so we are free to marry. Okay? But, since Christ never dies, as a Christian, we are not free to remarry. Period. You can't remarry. If you look at 1 Timothy 5:9, it says, when talking about widows, those that are widowed as a Christian, not before they became Christian, in order to be taken care of by the church in Timothy. It says, let not a widow be taken into the number under 60 years old, having been the wife of one man. Okay? So before God, if you were widowed before you became a Christian, and then you married again as a Christian, and then your second husband died, before God, you've only been married once, because you have that new life. Okay? But you cannot be a widow as a Christian, and remarry. Because he says in 5:11, but the younger widows refuse, for when they have begun to wax wanton, which means to become unrestrained, against Christ, they will marry. The younger widows refuse because when they have begun to get unrestrained, they will marry again, having damnation because they have cast off their first faith. It says that right there in 1 Timothy 5:12. Okay, so as a Christian, you can't remarry as a widow, as it says in the law of Moses, which he quotes in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 39. Okay? That one little scripture right there, quoting the law of Moses, is referring to a giving permission to remarry as a after you've become a Christian. Okay? You have to think about that because it can get confusing. But that's the law of Moses, and that's very important because like I wanted to emphasize before. But, and if she depart, he says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10, and unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord. Let not the wife depart from her husband, but and if she depart, let her remain unmarried. Okay? Now he wouldn't just turn around and say that you could get married again. In 7:39, and right here, the same man, if that was to be taken in a literal sense. Romans chapter 7 explains what he means by that. That is to be, the law of Moses is to be interpreted in a spiritual sense, and we are not under that literal law anymore. Mark, the Gospel of Mark 10:9, Christ speaking, what God therefore has joined together, let not man put asunder, put away. Mark chapter 10, verse 11 and 12. Whosoever puts away his wife and marries another commits adultery against her. And if a woman shall put away her husband and marry another, she commits adultery. Now that's as a Christian. Matthew chapter 19, verse 8 and 9. Moses, for the hardness of your hearts, allowed you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. This is Christ speaking. Moses, for the hardness of your hearts, under the law of Moses, allowed you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife and shall marry another commits adultery. And whosoever marries her that is put away does commit adultery. his disciples said unto him, if the case be so with the wife, it is not good for a man to marry. And Christ said, not all can hear that, but only to those to whom it is given. That's the truth. It's not good to marry. It's better to remain unmarried. But only those that have been, to whom it is given, can hear that. People are not going to listen to that. They're going to listen to what they want. And the church teaches it. That you should marry. His disciples said to him, if the case be so with the wife, that you can't divorce her. And you're putting yourself in a bad place, because if you do divorce and remarry, you're in adultery. You're in an adulterous relationship, regardless of what some priest said, okay, you can remarry. Or they themselves remarry you before God. It's not honored before God. And Christ said, all men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. But there are those who are made eunuchs, which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. And that's why he says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, art thou loosed from a wife? Seek not a wife. And if you marry, you have not sinned. John, the apostle, when speaking to the woman at the well, all these are apostles and the people who wrote books of the Bible. They all say the same thing. Christ was speaking to a woman at the well, and she lied and said that when Christ told her, go and get your husband and come here, the woman lied and said, I don't have a husband. Christ said, in that thou sayest truly, in that lie, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou hast now is not thy husband. So before God, only your first is your husband. Okay? And then Luke says the same thing. He says, Christ speaking, the children of this world marry and are given in marriage, but they that shall be accounted worthy to obtain that world and the resurrection of the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. Okay, so when we die, when we come before God, that husband or wife is not going to be your husband or wife. The fashion of this world passes away, as he says in 1 Corinthians 7. So that's the will of God when it comes to marriage.